Hey guys, and welcome to tonight's call. We're going to be talking about a topic of recognizing hunger and really understanding what it means to be physically hungry versus thinking that we're hungry.
Yeah. So this is a very important topic, and obviously in your in the nutrition stuff that we teach you, you will have probably gone through one of the modules that is about eating slow and mindful. And this whole thing is about eating when you're hungry and eating until satisfied. And the reason this is so important is because this is what drives weight loss. So if you're getting distracted with the certain types of food you're eating, or your workouts, or basically anything else, and you're forgetting to just eat when you're hungry and stop when you're satisfied, you won't see results. And so that's why we really just wanted to bring all of you back to this today, because it's such a crucial thing. It's a skill that we need to practice. We don't just like, oh, okay, I'm just going to do that and just do it. Like, it's not that easy, even though it is very simple. It's not that easy in practice. But really today, we just wanted to discuss bringing you back to that reminder of like, well, am I doing this one crucial thing? You know, because if the scale is not decreasing, it's highly likely that this is not happening for whatever reason. There are a number of reasons.
That's exactly right. As I always said, like, this is such a crucial part of the whole program of what we do. And this particular one of recognizing when you're actually hungry and then making a choice. And this is what allows you, eating mindfully and eating to satisfied rather than eating to feeling stuffed is where you have complete control over.
Yeah.
So rather than putting the responsibility on external things, like Eloise was just talking about, like worrying about what types of food that we're eating and getting hung up on those external things, this is what we can control in the moment, no matter what food that we're eating. We can control how quickly we eat the food and at what point we go, enough's enough.
Yeah, and the slow eating is what can help you recognize those cues, right? Because we know that if we eat too quickly, our brain can't register when we are actually full, and that makes it so much more difficult. But even when we're thinking about like hand portions and serving sizes and things like that, like the serving size doesn't matter. What matters is, are you eating until you're satisfied?
And there's a really crucial point that actually just reminded me of, think about it like exercise. If you're new to a movement, how do you practice that movement? First, you have to do it slowly until you get the habits and you get the form right and you start to learn how it feels. Eating's the same way. If we do it really fast and we don't actually think about it, we tend to make decisions that are just on a whim. And then later on, we think about it and go, oh, hang on, I kind of feel regret about doing that, or I feel like I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same with when you're learning a new movement. You have to do it slowly to understand it and to get it right from the get-go. And then once you've learnt it, then it becomes a faster thing that you can do. A lot of the times when we go to, with our eating, we want to just go at 100 miles an hour. And 9 times out of 10, like, if we took the time to slow down, we'd be amazed at what happens and amazed at the results that just doing that and slowing down and recognizing, hey, I've had enough to eat, I don't need to eat anymore. And understanding that we have the decision there, that we can make a choice, is super powerful. And that's really going to change the game when it comes to your results. Like, you have the control within.
Well, and one thing that pretty much ensures that you won't eat slowly to satisfied is if you're eating when you're distracted. So if you're eating in front of the TV and you're not paying attention to your food, if you're eating at your desk and you're trying to do work, if you're eating in the car, if you're sort of just eating in a rush and you're trying to do other things, it's going to be very, very difficult to recognize when you're full or when you're satisfied, because really we don't want to be eating to the point where we're full and like stuffed. We want to be just satisfied and then be able to say that's enough for now.
Exactly. And that adding to what Eloise just said then, that from a personal experience, like that used to be me. I used to eat very, very quickly, and that is come from an environmental thing as well. My family eat very, very quickly. My brother and my sister both, they eat really fast as well. And it was just something that I did. But when I started to slow down and recognize what was actually causing it and start thinking about what am I thinking in the moment when I'm eating really fast, one thing that came up for me was trying to put eating aside. If I was sitting and talking with someone and we were eating food, my brain would prioritize the conversation over eating. So the eating was like, quickly, I want to get it done so that I can get to this thing. And that's really being distracted instead of enjoying the time that you're spending with someone eating the food, but actually taking the time to register, what am I actually eating and do I need to keep eating it, and being okay with making that decision instead of just going with the flow.
So yeah, I mean, moving on from the importance of this topic, because I think we've established it's very important. So really there's 3 types of eating, and we'll bring up Aaron's favorite now, the whiteboard.
All right.
So yeah, there's three reasons that we eat food as humans. And reason number 1 is habitual eating. So this is when it's time to eat. So it's lunchtime, it's breakfast, it's 3 p.m. Whatever sort of time signals to you that you should be eating at that time, that is habitual eating. Then we've got number 2, which is emotional eating. And emotional eating, a lot of people tend to identify emotional eating with just, sitting with a tub of ice cream when you're really depressed. But that's only a tiny, tiny bit of emotional eating. Emotional eating is eating to avoid or to create a type of emotion. And so that could be any emotion. It doesn't have to be negative emotion. And that is the thing, right? You could be eating to feel happy. You could be eating because you feel happy. You could be eating because you're bored. You could be eating because you're tired. All of that is emotional eating. And the way that we figure that out is that it stems from our brain. So it's a thought that makes us want to eat. And we'll come back to that. So the third reason that we eat is physical hunger. And that's what we've been talking about before. So this is what we want to try and practice. Eating when we're physically hungry. All right, so going back to the emotional eating. So as I said before, emotional eating is really eating any time when you're not hungry is emotional eating. It's a form of emotional eating, right? And we can think that, it's not really damaging if I'm just eating when I feel tired or if I'm eating when I'm happy. But the fact is, if you're eating emotionally for an emotion and you're not physically hungry, it's going to be working against your goals. And it's also crucial to be aware, right? Like it's not a bad thing all the time, as long as you're aware of what you're doing. Eating becomes a problem if we're doing it just because that's just what we do. We're not able to catch ourselves and make a conscious decision. So that's what we want to try and come to, is making a conscious decision of, will I eat yes or no? Like, am I making a decision here, or am I just like doing what my brain wants me to do in the moment?
That's right. It's recognizing that short bit of time that we have between, and we've done another video on this, of being reactive or proactive. In that split time, we get that decision time, so we can either choose to react to what stimulus we got, in this case a thought, as Eloise have just said. As soon as we think something, we don't have to necessarily act on it right away. We have that decision.
Yeah, and so a really simple way to figure out if you're eating emotionally is to think about, if it's emotional eating, any food won't sound good. It'll be a particular type of food. So when we're eating emotionally, having a bowl of salad or a chicken breast with broccoli is not going to sound like something we want to do. Whereas if we're physically hungry, we probably would eat that because we want to satisfy our hunger, right? So that's the difference between, it's a little thing to think about with like, am I physically hungry or am I emotionally hungry? Is, do I want a specific type of food or would anything go right now? And if anything would go, you're probably physically hungry. If you really only want something that really tastes good, then it's probably emotional hunger. And it's just good to be able to recognize that. So if you do, you've recognized that you're emotionally hungry and you really want to eat the food right now, whatever the food is, and for whatever reason, it's really key to be able to look at, to think about, what do I actually need right now, right? So being able to go, well, I know that I'm not physically hungry, like my stomach's not growling, I'm not feeling physically hungry. So what is it that I'm trying to achieve with food? Am I trying to numb a negative emotion right now? Am I trying to create a positive emotion? And it's really crucial to be able to recognize that, because if you can recognize the emotion that you're trying to avoid or create with food, we're then able to go, well, how else could I get that right now? If I'm trying to relax, what other things could I do to get that same feeling of relaxation?
Yeah.
If I'm trying to not feel bad, well, maybe just sitting with that emotion, like what is the worst that's going to happen if you feel sad or anxious or tired, right? What's the worst that's going to happen if you don't eat?
That's right.
And it's that you're going to have to feel that emotion. And sometimes if we've been numbing those emotions for a long time, it can be very uncomfortable in the beginning, but it's a crucial skill, especially if you want to be able to lose weight and keep it off. Because the main reason that most people gain their weight back is because they haven't got that emotional hunger, the emotional eating within their control. Like they're not able to sit with their emotions and experience them or deal with them. So that's a crucial thing that we're going to be talking about a lot in the next few weeks and beyond, because we're learning a lot about this at the moment as well. And we think it's going to absolutely change your lives if you listen and apply.
That's right. That's right. And just on the emotional eating, Eloise just touched on a few good points there. And what we're really trying to do at the end of the day is listen to that voice in our heads that's telling us to do these things. And, we've
question it.
You really question it and go like, is this in the best interest?
Your thoughts aren't fact.
Exactly. They came from somewhere. We've been taught how to do a particular habit a certain way. So how we formed this habit in the very beginning may not have been put together under the best circumstances. So we have the option of recognizing that thought and going like, what's the new action that I want to take when I feel this particular emotion? It doesn't have to be something like overeating or eating certain types of foods. We can do something else, and we can replace that habit with something that's moving us closer to the person that we want to become.
Yeah, and a lot of that is not necessarily like actually replacing the act with something else, because that can be just another form of numbing, but replacing the act with being able to sit with your emotions and actually deal with them. So that is a very important thing to think about. So now talking about physical hunger and what is it? How do we know if we're physically hungry, right? And this is another thing that we think, well, isn't it just pretty easy to tell if I'm physically hungry or not? And the truth is it can take work sometimes. If you're used to not listening to your physical hunger cues, it's going to take time. But like any skill that you learn, you've got to take that time and practice it. You've got to watch out for it and keep working on it, and eventually you'll be able to figure it out. So physical hunger is stomach growling. It can be feeling really lethargic. It can be sort of, different people experience it differently. You could feel lightheaded. And there are many other different feelings. Like, I think you may or may not have gone through yet in the precision nutrition work the lesson that actually gets you to list out what your physical hunger signals are, because once you sort of learn them and you can tell what's going on, you can then watch out for them. So, and there's also like a hunger scale of like, 1 is like, I'm really full, and 10, or it's like 1 is I'm starving.
Yeah,
10,
basically like 1 is I'm starving. I can't remember
which way it goes.
Yeah, but basically what we're really trying to get at here is recognizing what those physical cues are, and 9 times out of 10 you can really differentiate between the two. Like, a physical cue, you feel that in your body, and it doesn't start with a thought. It's just something that comes in waves. It comes at you. If you haven't eaten for a certain amount of time, like, your body sends you a signal like, hey, I need something to fuel me up here because I'm running low. Whereas emotional eating, we're thinking about something usually, then we start to feel something, and then the habit is, all right, I'm going to go and eat something because I felt this.
Or
but it starts with here.
Yeah. The other thing is numbing out and not feeling anything. But yeah, on the physical hunger as well, is hunger is not an emergency. So when you're hungry, it's not a sign that, oh, quickly I have to like get something into me, otherwise I'm going to die. Like, you're not going to die if you're hungry.
Yeah.
And going back to that idea of like, if you've spent a lot of time not listening to your hunger signals and now you're going to start practicing that, it's okay to start eating when you just sort of think that you're hungry and go from there, right? You still want to stop eating when you feel satisfied. So whether it was a fact that your stomach was physically empty at the time, it doesn't really matter. It's just being able to go, well, I think that I'm hungry, not I just think that I want food. Like, going back to, I know that we wrote, I think I'm hungry in the emotional eating. But when you are learning, it's like you do have to find that sort of, that signal that tells you that you do feel a little bit hungry, and then start eating at that point. And as long as you are still stopping at around that 80% full mark, stopping when you feel satisfied. Again, if you're not sure, just eat slowly and stop after a certain point. If your stomach is feeling overfull, you've gone too far, and you can just learn from that and practice differently next time.
That's right. As long as you execute those 2 things, you're eating not really, really slowly, but if you're eating slower and being aware of what you're eating, and then stopping just before we get to that point where we start to feel full.
Yeah.
So you want to be just satisfied. As long as we do those 2 things, you're going to be you're going to start to develop that skill of being in tune with your body's signals. And you're going to quickly realize when I'm physically hungry versus when I'm, just wanting to eat because I'm feeling something that I've thought about. So, maybe an event happened and it made you feel sad or depressed, or, an emotion that came up for you, and then we want to be eating.
Yeah.
So
it's a skill you've got to practice.
Exactly, like anything. And like what we really want you to do with this program, it's all about implementing daily and learning and experimenting with yourself, and actually just going one after the next to just practice this. At the end of the day, the more we do something, the better we're going to get at doing it. And we want you to start practicing this habit of, eating slowly, eating mindfully, and stopping just when we get to that 80% mark and when we're feeling satisfied.
Yes. And because at the end of the day, as we started off this call on, like, this is the number one most important habit. If I could say do anything to lose weight, this will guarantee you lose weight if you do this.
That's
like,
right.
it is that concrete. But most of us aren't doing it because we're distracted with the other things, right? And we just want to bring you back to, you know, it doesn't matter, like, no matter what else you're doing, if you're doing this, you're good. That's it.
Exactly. Practice is the name of the game with this one. As I always said, if you get one thing from this program and one skill that you can take away that's going to really move the needle, this is it. This particular habit.
Yes,
so what we want to leave you with, guys, is just what we've covered tonight. So have a look through what the notes that we've written here. So the 3 reasons we eat food is habitual eating, emotional eating, and physical hunger. What we want to be focusing on is learning what that physical hunger is and then making a decision to act on it, rather than either just acting out of habitually, you know, eating at a certain time. Like, whoever said that lunchtime was at midday? It doesn't have to be. Or emotional eating to avoid or feel or create an emotion. Like,
actually, on that point where eating doesn't have to be at a certain time of the day, it just reminded me that there was something else I wanted to say, was our hunger isn't static. So every single day as humans, we have different needs. So some days you might eat 5 meals and you might be feeling hungry that day. The next day, you might not feel hungry at all and you might only eat 1 meal, right? It's about, like, getting rid of all of the rules that we have, like, circling in our heads and, like, throwing us off track, and coming back to, like, what am I actually feeling? Because if you think that you have to eat a certain number of meals each day or a certain number of food each day, you're never going to be able to listen to your actual signals, because every day we do different things, right? Like, you don't get the same exact number of steps down to the 1 step every day. Therefore, your energy needs are different every day. And it's just coming back to, like, trying to get rid of all of the rules and come back to, like, what do I actually feel today? It's okay to listen.
That's right, exactly.
It can be difficult, though.
It is difficult in the beginning to do.
Acknowledge that it's a skill that you're going to need to practice, and it's not going to come straight away, and that doesn't mean that it's bad or anything. It just means that you're learning. You're just learning about yourself as you go, and that's what we hope to help you with, is to learn more about yourself and your body and how it's all going to work for you to live your best life.
Exactly, guys. Exactly. So we're not going to give you any concrete homework. What we want you to do is watch the replay of this call and just really think about what are the takeaway points that you could then apply to yourself, and how can you start using what we've talked about tonight to really just dial in this particular habit a bit more.
And maybe even throughout the week, when you go to eat food, try and see, well, am I eating for reason 1, 2, or 3? You don't necessarily have to change your habits straight away. As we said, like, it's not bad, and you shouldn't say, oh, well, I'm eating for this reason, therefore I won't eat. But try and recognize it. See whether you are eating just because it's a certain time of the day. Try and recognize if you are actually hungry, or if you are eating for emotional reasons. Again, just try and learn. Just try and observe what you're doing.
Exactly. Just experiment, guys. That's all we're really doing here, is running experiments, getting you to learn and become more in tune with how you operate and what works best for you.
Yeah.
So, guys, hope that was really helpful. If you have any questions on this, let us know either in the group or message me, or we can chat about this on your check-in call. But yeah, if you have any questions, do ask for clarification on that.
Hope that was helpful, guys.
We will see you guys next time.